Hey guys, so I wanted to hop on here today and discuss something that's been on my mind lately, and that's why do people dislike AI so much? I've been working with AI art tools for about a year now, and while I don't get a ton of negative feedback on my work, I've noticed a trend in the type of negative feedback that I do receive. Simply put, a lot of people just don't like AI. I've gotten comments from people accusing me of stealing real artists' work simply for using AI art tools like Midjourney and Bing Image Creator. I've gotten comments from people saying that they liked one of my videos overall, but that they're disappointed in the fact that I used artificial intelligence to make it. In fact, it's pretty rare for me to get negative feedback that doesn't pertain to AI. So why is that? Why do people have such a low opinion of this technology? I think there are a number of reasons. The first one is the most obvious, and if you have any reservations about AI, then this one probably applies to you. Frankly, there are just a lot of bad actors in this space. From small-time crooks using deepfakes to scam people out of money or spread misinformation, to large, established institutions like Meta scraping users' social media feeds, it seems like something about AI just attracts a dishonest set of people. I'm not sure why this is, but it may have something to do with how easy it is to create with AI. In fact, I don't know about you, but over the past few months, I've definitely seen a rise in low-effort, low-quality AI channels popping up on YouTube. Basically, there are a lot of people out there just trying to use AI to earn a quick buck on YouTube, and it's made the platform a lot more frustrating to navigate in my experience. Another reason why a lot of people don't like this technology is that there's a kind of ethical gray area in the way that some AI is trained. In image generation, for example, the training process involves exposing the AI to as many images as possible, which then gives that specific AI model the ability to create new images based on the pre-existing images that it was trained on. So, from the perspective of the AI developers, what they're doing is giving their models the ability to essentially be inspired by pre-existing works. Their argument is that since human beings use pre-existing works of art for our inspiration, there's no real ethical issue with allowing artificial intelligence to do the same. However, many of the people who create those pre-existing works that the models are trained on believe that these training methods actually infringe on their copyright. There are even artists out there who believe they can recognize elements of their own work in the images that certain AI art tools produce. It actually kind of reminds me of the early days of YouTube. I know it's hard to imagine if you didn't experience it for yourself, but back in the day there were no copyright systems in place at all on YouTube. People used to upload all kinds of music and TV shows or movies, and YouTube basically just let it happen. Their strategy was to get people watching videos on their site and figure out the legality later. And this strategy seems to have paid off. YouTube now has the audience it sought, and they've also managed to at least start cleaning up their copyright issues. It might be that the developers of AI models are taking a page out of the YouTube playbook. Not that it's a good page, but it might be a lucrative one. I find it interesting to look at YouTube and AI together because of how differently the issue of copyright is perceived between them by general audiences. When it comes to YouTube, I haven't run across many people who complain about YouTubers infringing on, say, the copyright of major film studios or record labels. Nobody today complains about the fact that the bedrock of YouTube's success was copyright infringement back in the day. If anything, it seems like the attitude among YouTubers and their audiences is that YouTube is far too strict with the enforcement of its copyright policies. But when it comes to AI, people's attitudes are completely flipped. By and large, people are suspicious of and even sometimes hostile to creators simply for using AI at all. AI is perceived as lazy and dishonest, as a way of stealing and possibly even profiting off of someone else's work. So why are people so against the possibility of copyright infringement when it comes to AI, but so willing to overlook it when it comes to YouTube? I think the answer comes down to optics. YouTubers are generally considered the little guy when it comes to copyright issues, standing against big tech and the immense wealth and power of the film and music industries. In the case of AI, though, The copyright holders are the little guys, small-time artists struggling to make a living while big tech does everything it can to steal and capitalize off of their work. I think that in both cases, the issue is a bit more nuanced, but this is how they're generally perceived. There's also the prospect of what artificial intelligence is going to mean for multiple creative fields going forward. In 2023, a US court ruled that AI works alone cannot be copyrighted. In order for a work to qualify for copyright, it needs what's called sufficient human authorship. So while it is technically possible to copyright AI-generated material, that material needs to also include a significant amount of creative human input in order to qualify. This is definitely a win for artists, but the creative community at large is still vulnerable to AI. Many people fear that artists, writers, and other creatives could lose their livelihoods to this new technology. And because of these issues, a lot of artists are fighting to keep their works separate from AI. Even as I create this video, there's been a recent migration of artists from Instagram to other social media apps, such as Kara. This is because Instagram's parent company, Meta, is essentially using everybody's content as training material for their AI, often without users' knowledge or direct consent. As somebody who's been messing around with AI art tools like Midjourney, Bing, Stable Diffusion, etc. for about a year, I think the fear surrounding AI replacing writers, illustrators, and so on is somewhat unfounded, at least for the time being. I'm not trying to say that the danger isn't there, but this technology, it's not sophisticated enough to replace human beings. I'm sure a lot of you guys out there have seen those AI images where a person will have too many fingers or not enough fingers or too many arms or what have you. In my experience, these kinds of flubs are very common. There's even something called Moravec's paradox, which states, "It is comparatively easy to make computers exhibit adult-level performance on intelligence tests or playing checkers, and difficult or impossible to give them the skills of a 1-year-old when it comes to perception and mobility." Basically, while AI is able to perform some tasks that are far in advance of what humans are capable of, it still struggles to perform tasks that are extremely simple for human beings. Moravec's paradox was conceived of in 1988, but I think it's just as relevant now as it was then. An AI model may understand that human beings have 10 fingers, but it struggles very hard to understand where and when to place a finger, which is a problem that virtually no human artist encounters. There's also an element of humanity missing in AI works, one that's very crucial to art, and I don't think it's as easy as some people believe to replicate this element of humanity, at least not with the current technology. The last reason why I think people distrust AI so much is simply that it's a new technology. We're still testing the boundaries of what it can do and what it can't. It's also shaping up to be the next big leap in human technology, maybe even on par with the introduction of the internet. I don't know if you guys remember, or maybe you're not old enough, but when the internet first started going mainstream, there were plenty of scammers out there and people using the internet for nefarious purposes, so there was a lot of distrust surrounding it, particularly among boomers. A lot of people just didn't want to mess with it at all. Remember the film The Net? That's a great little time capsule of a film that does a good job of capturing early internet anxiety. Back then, it seemed like the internet could do anything. To people who didn't understand it, it almost seemed like magic. And that's kind of where we are with AI today. Most people don't really understand how AI works, but they understand that it's likely going to have a pretty significant effect on how the internet operates in the coming years. It seems like every day we're hearing about new AI programs and new AI abilities. It can be hard to keep up with, and since most people aren't necessarily using the technology yet, they feel unsure about what it's going to mean for us in the future. So, with all of this being said, is AI redeemable? Is there any value in works created by AI, and can such works be created honestly? Or is the technology simply rotten to the core? Well, I believe there may be some artistic merit to AI works, but then again, considering some of the content on my channel, I might be a little biased. This issue actually kind of reminds me of back when I was younger, when one of the big questions of the day was whether or not video games count as art. The conclusion that I think most people have come to since is, well, it depends on the game. I'm not sure that many people would consider Superman 64 to be art, but when you look at a game like Stardew Valley, which was developed by one guy, or Hollow Knight, which was developed by a team of 3, I mean, nobody can tell me that this isn't at least some form of art. And I think ultimately the AI art will one day reach that point too. After we've had some time to smooth out the rough edges in terms of legality and ethics, I believe AI will become just another art creation tool, like a pencil or a drawing tablet. But a number of things will need to be in place before that can happen. The courts need to determine whether or not AI models are in fact breaking any laws concerning artists' rights. Obviously, if this is happening, it needs to stop. I think, too, that contributing to AI training should be optional, and that social media sites should provide a simple method of opting out for those who don't want their content used for AI training purposes. Disclosure is extremely important, too. Anytime someone makes a post on social media, a website, etc., they should be required to disclose whether or not an AI tool was used during the creation of that content. Whether it's an image, a video, a voice, music, any kind of writing, there should be a requirement to disclose all of it, and to disclose it as clearly as possible so that consumers of that content are fully aware of how the content they're engaging with was created. And there needs to be serious consequences for failing to disclose this information, like account suspension levels of seriousness. I think that if a policy like that were in place, consumers would feel a lot less deceived when they interact with AI-produced content. It might even make AI more palatable for people who might have otherwise not wanted to engage with it. One site that I actually think does a really good job of handling the AI disclosure issue is DeviantArt. Whenever you upload an image to that site, you're required to divulge whether or not AI was used in the creation of that image. You're also given the option of allowing your work to be used for training the DreamUp AI model. It's not mandatory, and users can easily choose to opt out. I think Meta could learn a thing or two here. I like to think that AI art has a bright future, but I also think that a lot of people have some very valid reservations about the technology and how it's currently being used. I don't believe that there's anything inherently unethical or deceptive about AI, but it's pretty clear that a lot of players in this space have chosen to engage in unethical behaviors, which have really muddied the waters for everyone. And ultimately, I think it's up to all of us to perform our due diligence and ensure that we're using AI in an ethical way, if we choose to use it at all. But what do you guys think? Do you love AI? Do you hate it? Do you think I missed or overlooked anything in this video? I'd love to know what you think in the comments. Until then, see you next time.